Listen here, anyone who wants to play games at more than 2 players, suckers! You're out of the club! These are for 2 people only.
That's right. If you didn't know, you only need 2 people to play a game. Well, some games
Some games are solo, but we're not talking about that either.
Yeah, we're not talking about those games either. But nonetheless, this is our top 10 2-player games. My name is Nick.
I'm Mike.
We are the Brothers Murph. And yeah, we do this list every couple of years because there's always great 2-player games. Particularly right now, we're in a big, the duel game.
We're in a resurgence right now of 2-player games at the moment, yeah.
Indeed, and some of them have been very, very good. But we play pretty much exclusively 2-player, at least on this channel. And in real life, we play 2-player the vast majority of the time. A lot of people do. And so 2-player lists are always kind of nice.
Yeah.
Over on our Patreon, we're going to have more games that we really like at 2-player. This list could have been 100 games long, realistically. There's so many good games. But we'll have a couple more over there on Patreon.
Yeah, and we always really like games that are 2-player specifically because I think it creates interesting decisions for design and stuff like that. And so these are some that, at least right now, we're really digging on.
On the Brothers Murph, I know we do a lot of really silly things to try to get you to subscribe, but realistically, we want you to subscribe because you are inspired to. We want you to subscribe for the great community. We want you to subscribe because you really feel like it's worth it for you to do. We want to be worth your time. We want to be worth your attention, and we want to be worth your things because of all...
All right, so number 10 is Crokinole. Now, I know you can play in teams. It's a 2-player. It's a 1v1 battle of wits and discs a flickin', and this is just a fun dexterity challenge game where you're playing on this big circular board, and you are flicking discs, hoping to get your discs as close to the middle of the board as possible. And there's simple rules where if your opponent's color is not present on the board, you must reach the inner ring, which is kind of surrounded by all these pegs, which will get in your way every single time. If there's at least one of your opponent's pieces on the board, you must carom off of at least one opponent piece for your piece to stay on the board.
You have to touch your opponent at least once.
If you don't, then you remove your disc. If you don't have your opponents, you don't reach that inner circle, you also remove your disc, and you're just trying to knock your opponents out from the center and get your pieces into the center, and then you score points based on what is left afterward. Is kind of cancel scoring. So if you and I, if I have 25 points and you have 20 from all your disc placements, I only get 5 points. You get the difference between the two, and you're trying to often race to 100 points, but there's different ways to play and stuff like that. But it's just so fun and beauty and simplicity. Right?
Yeah, it is. A lot of these kind of fun dexterity games. The last one we did this, we had like Classic on the list. Classic is a great game. There's a lot of these kind of 2-player head-to-head dexterity games, but Crokinole is the best. It is the best dexterity game out there. It's in the top 100 on BGG for a reason. It's just very, very good. It's just fun. You can get good at it, but it's also like a lot of just kind of like luck. It's just really, really great. We love it.
It's really fun. It's dexterity goodness, but it feels very like tactical. I feel like you can pull off good shots and stuff, and you, like you said, can actually get better at it. So number 10 is Crokinole.
Number 9 is a 2-player trick-taking game that we've talked about for many years now. We still really, really enjoy it, and this is Claim.
Yes, sir.
Claim is a really interesting 2-player trick-taking game. There's actually a number of 2-player trick-taking games out there nowadays.
It's a ton, it's really cool.
Whereas this is one of the first ones, and it's still really, really fun. This is a game where you are kind of doing normal trick-taking. One person leads with a suit, the other person has to play the same suit. But this is a game where the suits are various, kind of like fantasy factions. There's like seers, and there's dwarves, and there's goblins, like doppelgangers and all this kind of stuff. And they all have special abilities. But where the really interesting part of this game is you essentially play like 2 separate games. And the first game is really just setting you up for the second game, which is where you score your points. So basically, every round there's a face-up card next to the deck, and what you're doing when you're playing that individual trick is you're playing for that face-up card. Whoever wins the trick gets to take the face-up card, put it in a pile, and they'll get to use that card in the next round, in the next phase. And then whoever loses just gets the card off the top of the deck. So I always like trick-taking games where you're incentivized to lose sometimes. Because sometimes you're like, that's like a 1 goblet. It's like the worst card in the game. I don't want that. I'm going to try and lose because I'd rather just get something off the top of the deck.
Right.
And then, so basically you play out, I think, 10 tricks, and then after that you'll have 10 cards. You pick up those cards, and then those are your cards for the next round. And then this one, what you're trying to do is you're trying to get majorities of the various, like, fantasy races.
Yeah, because in the second half of the game, if you win a trick, you collect the cards and put them into your kind of personal pile. And then after all the tricks are played, you see who has the most dwarves, who has the most goblins, who has the most knights, and things like that. And you're trying to get the majority of them. Yeah, majority. So if you get 3 of the 5 factions, you win. And what is really fun about this game, other than what you mentioned already about like deliberately trying to win or lose based on what cards are on offer, each of the different fantasy races do different things.
Yes.
Some of them, like the undead in the base game, will, in the first half of the game, you'll be able to collect any undead and put them in your personal collection pile. So you can kind of start collecting early.
Yes.
That's not typically something you can do. There's knights and goblins where the worst knight will still beat the best goblin. They always beat goblins. All sorts of things like that. And they've made different sets that introduce more characters. So you can start mixing and matching different race types to get just different blends and flavors. There's also locations and special rules and a bunch of things you can do to add and change the game. But I really just like having a bunch of different factions to create kind of fun, interesting blends. And it's just really fun to kind of deal with. It's like, okay, some of them are a little more straightforward, some are a little bit more tricky. And so it kind of keeps us coming back to this one.
Yeah, it's really, really good. This is actually one of the more new kind of duel versions of the game, although it's a re-implementation of another duel game. This is going to be Lord of the Rings Duel for Middle-earth, which is a re-implementation of Seven Wonders Duel, which is an imitation of Seven Wonders.
So now we're so deep into the two-player game thing, we're dueling duel games.
That's right, that's right. Wow. This one is really, really good. But this is Seven Wonders Duel, but with a Lord of the Rings theme on it, and there are some changes to it, which is really, really nice. But Seven Wonders Duel is kind of like Seven Wonders, where you're getting the various resource cards, you're kind of building up your engine, you're trying to build these wonders and trying to score points, or do a couple different things. You can win like a military victory, you can win a science victory, you can win kind of like a points victory. And Lord of the Rings is kind of in the same way, where you still have that same card pyramid, you're still doing those kinds of things. But in this case, you're kind of like either trying to run from the Nazgul, or the Nazgul are trying to hunt down the ring bearers. You are trying to get like some area control on like the various map of on the map of like Middle Earth.
Yep.
And then you can also get it by, in this case, the science is like uniting the various races of Middle Earth.
Yeah, and so I like that there's kind of 3 unique win conditions. And either player can gain any of the wins. So yeah, if you dominate Middle Earth and you basically have control over all the regions, you win. If you're, chase down the ring bearers or get to Mount Doom, you win. And that's pretty cool. And so it's like, Seven Wonders Duel is a game that we've enjoyed, and enjoyed the kind of cadence of trying to make sure that the cards you really want, you get to gain. But as you're going and uncovering cards from this card pyramid and stuff, you are undoubtedly giving your opponent first pick of newly revealed cards or newly uncovered cards. So you kind of want to try to control as much as you can, and then also, build up. If I'm working toward that kind of, uniting the different races of Middle Earth win, I need to kind of cater to that, but I can't just like let the military side go, because then if you come and run over all of Middle Earth, I lose. So I enjoy the push and pull of that, of like going for my own goals, but making sure I try to counter yours, but not split my attention so much that I don't kind of do anything enough. And it's got great art and stuff. It's in the world that we really enjoy, and keeps that core mechanisms of sort of the engine building. And here you have kind of these, I think they're traits and stuff that you'll get instead of like the resources of like stone and things in the original. And you can kind of get these big fortresses as the wonders that give you different powers. And I think it's really fun.
It's really good. Yeah,
it's a lot of the heart there, but gives you a cooler set dress.
Yeah, totally. If you like Seven Wonders Duel, you'll probably like this one. If you don't like Seven Wonders Duel, this probably won't change your mind. It is different, but it's still mostly Seven Wonders Duel, but it's really, really outstanding. They made it look better. It's got a cooler theme on it, and it's just rad.
Yeah.
This next one is a new one. I think people will be happy to see it finally, and this is Star Wars Rebellion.
It's finally on this list. Every time we've done a kind of 2-player-centric thing before, they've always said, why no Star Wars Rebellion? And at that point, we had not played them. But last year, I played Star Wars Rebellion. You played Star Wars Rebellion a month or so ago. And so now we have finally played it, and
it deserves to be on the list.
How great it is.
It really does truly deserve to be on the list. This is Star Wars in a Box, where it's a 2-player game where one side takes on the Rebellion, one side takes on the Empire. The Empire is basically trying to find the Rebel base. The Rebel base is hidden by the Rebellion on one of the many planets on the board, and they are basically trying to find out where it is, and then essentially eliminate all the troops on there to essentially take it over and win.
Yep.
And the Rebellion player is basically trying to hide as long as possible, and then just try to time out the game, because there's a timer track that's happening, and then the Rebellion player can also complete objectives to essentially speed up the time.
Right.
And so that's what you're trying to do, but it's really, really interesting because you get to tell your own version of this game. Like when I was the Rebellion, my base was on Geonosis and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, it's on Geonosis, that's where it is. And you gotta get to tell this whole thing where like Leia was out there doing all this crazy stuff. Like Luke's mom, like stepmom was doing a whole bunch of stuff the whole game and stuff. You can tell all these crazy stories. You can like, your game, like Obi-Wan got turned to the dark side and stuff.
He sure
like
did.
you just get to tell these crazy cool stories, but within a structure that all of us kind of understand. And it's a really fun way to go about the game.
Yeah, it's a cool way to like make something new out of something very familiar. Like we know these characters, we know these worlds, but doing something that is deliberately breaking away from the story is really cool. And it's also really fun when it does line up the story. Like I won my game by blowing up the Death Star on like the last turn and like had to go for this like big roll of the dice. I'm like, man, that's pretty sick, dude. Like that's very end of the first Star Wars and stuff, and like it felt very fitting and cool. So this is one that like we are obviously late to the table on, but now we get it.
Yeah.
We're gonna see if we can do a barrel roll real quick. Hang on.
The landing gear is down.
Your landing gear is down.
This is Sky Team, if you haven't figured it out by now.
Yeah.
Sky Team is a really great, unique 2-player game by Scorpion Mask, who tend to make very unique, out-of-the-box kind of games. And this one's no different. This one won the Spiel des Jahres. It's a very, very popular game now, which is really great. Sky Team is a game, it's a 2-player game, where you are trying to land a plane together. But one of you is a traitor, and they're actually trying
to.
Yeah, right? Like,
oh my gosh. You're like, actually, we have no wheels.
It is just straight up cooperative. But you're trying to land a plane, and there's lots of stuff you have to do to land a plane. You have to have like the flaps open. You have to have the landing gear down. You got to come in flat. You can't be coming in too fast. You can't overshoot the airport.
You got to manage your approach, the whole thing. You got to clear traffic out of the way so you don't run into planes.
Slamming cocaine on the side.
Maybe they call it coffee, but we know what's up.
Yeah, we know what it is. But nonetheless, you're trying to do all these things. So you have the pilot and the co-pilot. Both of you have certain parts of the plane that only you can do.
Yeah, you're in charge of certain tasks, I suppose.
Exactly. And then there's certain stuff every round that you have to do. Like you have to maintain your kind of like tilt, I guess. You have to maintain your speed, or you can speed up or slow down, because again, you don't want to overshoot the airport. There's a couple things you always have to do, and then each person by the end of the game has to make sure they have done a couple different things. And then you need to land safely. And there's like other airplanes in the way, you have to shoot them down. No, it's just other airplanes that they have to make sure they get out of the way so you can actually land. Who knows how you get them down? Maybe throw grenades.
They haven't done the Con Air expansion yet.
I know, right? Gosh, if only.
Threatening to blow them up. Yeah.
But the cool thing is like that's just the base game, and the base game is really, really fun. I would happily play the base game over and over and over again, because every time it's different, because you're rolling these dice, and the dice are kind of, you have to place all these dice, and that's really where a lot of the difficulty in the game comes from, because of the fact that you're like, well, I roll these dice, I have to place them, and you're not allowed to talk while doing it. But another cool thing is that there's tons of other airports that you can land in the base game.
Yes.
There's like 20 of them. They get harder and harder. There's also all these different like modules you can play with. There's like kerosene leaks. There's like interns. There's like things where the runway is really, really icy. It's just tons and tons and tons of stuff.
So much content in a really small box.
Yeah, reasonable small box.
Very
and it's
impressive.
just, each one is its own little challenge. It's really, really cool. And again, it just doesn't really feel like any other game.
Yeah, I think it's why it's kind of captured our eye. I mean, it won the Spiel des Jahres and stuff, so it's obviously very popular. But I think it's for a good reason, just because like they give you so much ability to kind of grow and level up the challenge level. Yeah. And like, I just feel like there's not often that much content in a box to kind of change things up, and now they have a small expansion as well, which adds kind of even more modules and ways to play, which I look forward to trying someday. But Sky Team is one that's just like really fun for us. We dig it.
All right, next Hey, I'm here for to get weighed, I guess? I don't know, I got an email.
I don't know, it seemed official.
It's no big deal. It's just stuff with Destiny, like the BMI for your Destiny, man. It's going to be real quick and easy. Okay. Can I get your name real quick? Is it? Oh, wait, no, hold on. Oh, I know you. It's Clar, right?
No.
Clar the demigod. I mean, I look kind of like you. I mean, you look kind of like, I guess maybe, hey, you don't make mistakes. Never mind, don't even worry about that.
My name's Nick.
Your name is Nick. Sure, hey, we're all named Nick here, right? Go ahead and put your hand on that.
Okay. That sounds bad. Is that bad?
You know what? Just take your hand off it. Let's take that again.
Sounds bad.
Okay.
It seems like this is bad.
Well, I mean, it's all perspective, right? So what I'm going to need you to do is going to be totally fine. I'm just going to need you to go in the other room, and you're going to await assignment.
Okay.
And it's going to be, you don't have any next to kin, right?
No.
Okay, good. Yeah, that's fine.
The Scales of Fate can be tough. But to tip the scales in your favor, you should play Scales of Fate, which is by Ivy Studios. This is a 2-player game set in the Veiled Fate universe. Each game, every player will be given 2 of the demigod cards. After you build the board, you will take actions on your turn. One of the main things you can do is place a demigod out onto the board. You can place them on these various action tiles on the board and do that action. And then you can deploy the various servants to different parts of the board, and they will lose or gain demigods points in that row or column. There are also one-time use god abilities that players can use during the games, but if you do use them, you will lose a point at the end of the game. You will score points at the end of the game for how far apart your demigods are on the score track, or if they're on the same spot, you will score the points of the spot they're on. In this game, you can bluff, dodge, and misdirect your way to the top. And you, of course, can tip the Scales of Fate in your favor. Make sure to check out the campaign for Scales of Fate down in the description below, and a big shout out to Ivy Studios for sponsoring. The next one is going to be a game that we really like, and this is going to be, well, obviously, this is Kinfire Delve. Obviously, we like it on the list.
Sure, but I think what you like mean the Kinfire Delve series of games, which you can combine to play more than 2-player, but each one is a solo or 2-player pack within itself. That's based in the kind of Kinfire Chronicles world from Incredible Dream, and this takes the characters from that campaign game, and you'll be going through kind of a gauntlet. This is this deck of cards, which is the the kind of enemies and rooms and various things you're going to interact with, and you're trying to kind of overcome these cards, which are going to allow you often to delve down deeper into that deck. You're trying to get to the bottom of the deck so you can go face the kind of the
kind of big bad down there.
Yeah, the big bad that's at the bottom of this current dungeon you're delving in. And for us, I think like this was one of the more unexpected delights.
It seemed cool, but like
it seemed cool.
I didn't realize how fun it really was until we finally got a chance to play it.
And then we played it. I was like, man, I really enjoyed the challenge level of this one because you have a different character, you have a hand of cards that you're playing through, and each character has a little bit of a different flavor. Some are, a little bit more support, some are a little more direct attack, different things like that. And so you're really trying to use these cards and then rolling dice to kind of put progress on these various obstacles and things you're trying to overcome. And I just find it to be like a really cool, interesting experience every time because you have this deck of cards. And oftentimes you're just blindly discarding stuff off of it as you're delving down in. So the mix of cards you actually face and deal with will be totally different every time.
You're seeing like maybe half the deck, not even. You're seeing like a third of the deck.
Yeah,
maybe?
you really are skipping a lot of stuff.
Yeah, you're not seeing, so even if you were seeing the whole deck, they would still come out in a different order. But in this case, a lot of times you're just like, we'll play this game multiple times. Also be like, I've never seen this card, because I guess it just always got delved through. And it's just all about adapting where, you're always dealing with kind of like 4 of these threats. And so a new one comes out and you're like, we need to get rid of that one quick because a lot of times they have ongoing things that are happening that are really, really bad. And you're just adapting as you're playing, trying to delve. You're constantly communicating. Like Kinfire Chronicles, the original game, you can help each other out by boosting, so it's very cooperative. It's just good. There's 3 of them now. Again, you can like mix and match them together. You can combine them to make a more than 2-player game, but they're just so good. Great art, great production. They're like $20.
Yeah, really affordable.
I don't know how they make money on these because it's such
like gold foil on the cards. It's an
insanely good production, and they're like $20. They're so fun.
Yeah.
And I kind of wish they got a little more recognition because they're just such a blast. But I'm like, please keep making more Kinfire Delve. I will buy every single one and play them because I love them so much.
Yep.
Number 4 is going to be another kind of a very overproduced game that I absolutely love, and this is Mythic Mischief.
It's funny because they say overproduced, but it's ultimately a fairly small package and stuff, but it is very highly produced.
It's Ivy Studios, so they be doing stuff.
They be doing it up real good.
We just talked about them, you know?
Yeah, Mythic Mischief. We did just talk about, speaking of. Mythic Mischief is a fantastic, abstract, chess-like game where you are, depending on which version, you're either in a library after hours or you're in a hedge maze after hours, hedge maze after hours, but you're students of a kind of monster, mythical school where you're wizards and vampires and werewolves and stuff from the various sets, and your faction type is going to give you some specific things and ways to interact with the board and the movement that you do that is completely unique from your opponent. And you're ultimately trying to stay out of the way of the Tome Keeper, who's just kind of marching through in this kind of pre-programmed way. And you want to make sure your opponents get in their way so that when they walk by, they catch students where they shouldn't be, which gives you your kind of points, and you're trying to keep your people out of the way. And you can do this by shifting the walls, the kind of bookshelves in the base version of the game. You can shift walls and move things around, which might change the way the Tome Keeper goes. You can move your opponent's pieces around or move yourself around in certain ways. And you can kind of power up your stats, I guess, to get more movement, to get more ability to move walls and move opponents and stuff as you go and kind of collect your little books around the board. So it gives you a lot of really fun stuff and a ton of asymmetry.
Yeah, and a ton of asymmetry because every character, every faction has like an ultimate ability, but you only get to do that like once or twice. But the main thing is the only thing that's different between each faction is like each faction moves the walls in a unique way, and they also can move the other mythics in a unique way. Sometimes it's like they will swap like this. Sometimes they can turn people. It's such a small change, but those little changes make you have to play each of the factions really, really differently.
Yes.
Because you're like, oh, now in this case, I can move a wall. If I'm here, I can move it here. But then this one moves it like this. And it's like that. It's such a small change, but it really makes positioning and all this stuff really, really different. And it's just so much fun to play a faction kind of over and over and learn like how to play them well and how to get good at them and how to counteract someone else's faction. It's just really, really good. At this point, there's like, I don't know, like 10 or 15 different factions.
I think there's 10 or 12 or something.
Yeah, so it's a ton of variety. Again, all of them have like really nice minis. It's a really good production, but there's just something about this game that I absolutely love. Also plays really good solo, which is nice. But yeah, it's just a 2-player, really abstract strategy game. That's kind of it. But it's just so fun. It's got such a cool theme, and it's just really, really good. Number 3, you probably knew it was going to be on the list. This is War of the Ring.
We'd be remiss if we didn't mention it.
Yeah, exactly. Star Wars Rebellion is Star Wars in a box. War of the Ring is Lord of the Rings in a box.
Yeah, maybe.
It is 100% that, and it's kind of like Star Wars Rebellion. They don't play anything alike, but it's like it in the same way where you basically get to tell your own version of like the Lord of the Rings trilogy, where you have the Free People versus the Shadow Army. The Free People are trying to destroy the ring, or they're trying to have a military victory. The Shadow Army is trying to either corrupt the ring bearers or win a military victory. And it's just very asymmetric. Every side has their own set of cards. All those cards are very, very thematic. It's like, oh, this thing is happening in the Shire. The Scouring of the Shire is happening. So you get to put troops out there and just all of it makes sense in terms of what you're doing. But again, you get to tell your own story because you start off as the Fellowship player. As the Fellowship, everyone's in the Fellowship. But you can be like, no, Boromir doesn't die. He breaks off and he does go to Gondor. Or maybe he stays with the Ring Bears and he goes to Mount Doom with Frodo and Sam.
Yeah, I think that's what's like really fun and for at least for why, for right now, why War of the Ring lives higher than Star Wars Rebellion. We've obviously played this one much more.
Yes.
But it really feels like you get to tinker with the story in like really cool ways. Like I love that the Fellowship, you choose when cards if you choose to do so. When characters leave the Fellowship and they become this powerful ally in different places and stuff. But I love the idea that characters that were not all the way in Mordor now can be, and the kind of strategic choices those give you. And then the fact that, you know, like, of course, Gondor is probably going to be a hot spot just because of the way the game sets up. But it's like, what if, like, all things hinge on Rohan? You know what I mean? And, like, Edoras is at the center of it all. And, like, that's really cool. Like, it's just really neat the way things kind of play out. It's very based on the books, and the cards are all different events and characters and things. But each of those cards that you have are also dual use because you can use them in combat for a specific ability at the bottom, but of course you're foregoing their kind of event that they produce. So I love the decision space there of like, oh man, I really need this card for both things it provides. I got to make a tough decision now. But yeah, really tinkering with the Fellowship and who's in and out and stuff. The kind of hidden movement of like, where's the Fellowship exactly is just neat. Like it's just very neat. It's a big splashy game, tons of minis everywhere. It's epic. It's just it's so fun and awesome every time, and it feels like the epic story that it is.
Yeah. Number 2 is going to be Beer and Bread. Boom. You saw that? Beer and Bread.
Right
yes,
there.
Indeed. Beer and Bread is a great 2-player game. It's just this, I don't know, I like this game more and more and more every single time I play it.
Me too.
Which is why it just keeps climbing these ranks. I really, really enjoy it. This is a game where you are 2 kind of rival families living across a river. And when you're not killing each other, you spend 1 week a year having a friendly beer and bread competition.
Yeah, if you're not hunting each other for sport,
Exactly.
you are engaging.
A lot of violence in a lot of these games.
Engaging in baking and brewing competition.
Yeah, you just have a friendly competition between the 2 families across the river. And you are basically, again, trying to brew beer and bake bread, and you want to kind of do both of those things as equally as you possibly can.
Right.
But this is nice because this game is kind of about drafting and then using these, each card has 3 uses?
3 uses, yeah.
3 uses. How do you want to use each of those cards?
Yeah, so it's a card drafting game at its core, and then every odd numbered round, so first, third, and fifth, you're going to be doing classic card drafting of choosing a card to use for one of those 3 abilities, passing the hand to your opponent, they pass you their cards, and you go on and stuff like that. But in the second, fourth, and sixth rounds, you are using a hand of cards and just going back and forth and taking turns. And there's a little bit of ability to kind of churn what's in your hand, but it's not the classic card drafting. So I kind of like the difference between the 2 rounds. But like I said, each of these cards has 3 uses, so you can put a card down to harvest some goods. Along the top of every card will be 1 or more different ingredient types, and you can gain a bunch of resources that way, although you only have like 9 spaces to store stuff. And if you ever have excess, you have to offer it to your opponent, and they can either take or decline those resources. So you kind of want to be careful about how many things you gain, because you don't want to just gift stuff to your opponent, because it makes their life a lot easier. The middle of every card is a recipe where you can spend all those ingredients you've gained and stored to bake a bread or make a beer. And then the bottom is going to be either an in-game power, an end-game scoring ability, and that's going to allow you to clear out your brewery and bakery to be able to make more things. And again, we say you want to build these things evenly. You want to make as much beer and bread as you can, but you want to do them evenly because your lower score of those 2, they each get calculated separately. That's your score. So you need to make sure that you're, not foregoing one type of thing to make another.
Well, and the various breads and the various beers have also different values too. So even if you made like more beer than bread, if the bread is like way higher value, you always have to be looking like, oh crap, I need to make another bread because my beer score is way higher than my bread one. And it's just really good. It's just this kind of like relatively quick. I mean, it's like 45 minutes, or so, kind of back and forth. How to use those cards is really, really like, oh man, I really, really want to bake this bread, but I need to do this stuff beforehand. It's just really, really good. It's just outstanding. A lot of stuff to think about. Yes. For what is ultimately not a super complicated game, not a super long game, there's a lot to think about. And just, it's just, I don't know, this tickles my brain. I don't know what it is.
I think that's a great, thing. It's just, there's a lot to consider. There's a lot of things you can do to kind of plan.
Yes.
And so it kind of rewards you coming back to and kind of leveling up your skill set. Nick.
Yeah, Mike.
We're not afraid to say that we're Uwe Rosenberg fans. Sorry.
Sorry.
I know that's controversial.
I'm sorry.
Only got like freaking 10 games in the top 100 of all time. But one game in particular that we really enjoy is Oranienburger Canal.
Yes, indeed.
And this is a solo or 2-player worker placement game. Uwe's previously done, you'll hear us talk about on our Patreon video, Fields of Arle. Just there, so yeah.
Now, though, that's a lot bigger of a game, I would say.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Oranienburger Canal is a game where you are placing out workers back and forth on a shared kind of worker placement board.
Yeah.
So once you go somewhere, then I can't go there, kind of thing. And you're gaining resources, you are gaining cards, and you are building out
bridges,
routes railways and canals and roads and stuff like that. And this whole game is a big timing, efficiency, synergizing kind of game.
All about timing.
Yes, because you have all these structure cards,
Yeah.
and they have different resources, and when you go and play them down, they go onto one of the empty slots on your board, but then they don't do anything right away. They just are there and available, because you need to build out your infrastructure, and you need to surround that card with different route types. Again, pathways, roads, railways, and things. And the cards are very often going to be dependent on the certain things that you choose to surround it with. So one might be for every canal that surrounds this card, you'll get this thing, whether it be money or resources or points and stuff like that. So you're really trying to build out everything so that every structure is surrounded by the right routes, and then once it's completely surrounded, it triggers its effect then. So it does not happen when you place it, unless you're putting it into a spot that's fully surrounded by routes, which you can do. And then you have the ability to possibly put 2 bridges between that structure and other structures to be able to trigger its ability a second time. So it all comes down to that timing. When do I want this to trigger? If it's going to give me a bunch of this one resource, I want to make sure I have room to store it, and on and on and on. And I feel like that's what keeps us coming back to this game. Is there is, I think, always something you could do differently to like get a little bit more out of what cards you place and how you play them and when you use them and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, it is that timing is so interesting, where you don't get stuff when you play it. You have to pay for it when you play it, but then you can do something. And it's like, again, so many things are like, you'll turn this into this. So you gotta make sure you have those resources to turn in. It's just all this like resource, paying and getting and timing efficiency puzzle is really what it is. And all the cards are unique. There's a billion cards in the game because it's Uwe Rosenberg. So it's just like you probably put in a computer like, here's all the things, and just make a whole bunch of different stuff.
There's basically there's different decks, and you'll be using only one of the decks at a time. It's like and you're not even using all of the cards within that deck. So there really is.
I think we did it where we used as many cards we used, and then we put them on the bottom so they didn't come up again. And I think each deck you can play like 2 or maybe 3 games without seeing a repeat card. And again, there's decks A, B, C, D, E, and F. So there's like 6 decks. And then you can also just mix them all together. So it's like you're playing these crazy different games, but again, it's just all about this puzzle, this really, really interesting efficiency puzzle that sounds boring. The game also looks boring. I'll be honest. It could use an upgrade, which I think it is. I still haven't heard anything about that new version that was supposed to come out.
I don't know if it's over here yet, but there is another printing. It's just called Canal that is supposed to be coming this year, I believe. I think it might be out in Europe.
But nonetheless, it's like if you like those kinds of efficiency puzzles, if you really want to get into those like good Euro mechanics, it's also like a pretty simple game. Like it's very easy to teach this game. It plays basically the same solo and 2-player. And then it's just got a little bit of worker placement, and then the rest is just figuring out that timing of how you want to do stuff, how you want to maximize things. It's really, really interesting, and we really like it a lot. Again, it's not the prettiest game, it's not the most exciting theme on the planet, but it is a very, very good game. It is banana yellow, yes.
Yeah, at least the original, the one that we have. So that is our list, everybody. Of course, there are so many more 2-player games. I know you're probably screaming at the screen, how did you not mention Patchwork? There's so many. We love those games too. We are going to talk about many more of them over on Patreon. If you're a patron, that video is live right now. If you want to become a patron, you can join it and watch it immediately. And we recommend you do so. So thank you to all of our patrons. Thank you to Ivy Studios who sponsored this, I was going to say playthrough, that's coming later, this top 10. Go check out Scales of Fate and information in the description of this video for that. And is there anything else?
That's it.
That's it, everybody. Make sure to thumb this video up, leave a comment with your favorite 2-player games in the comments below, and we'll see y'all real soon.
Bye. Thank you so much for watching that hot top 10. Big shout out to Ivy Studios for sponsoring this one. And a big shout out to Kent and Courtney Parker, our dear good friends, the Parkers. We love you so much. They're sponsoring us for the month of March. Thank y'all. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Keep on playing games, y'all. You're great.